John Osterman, also known as Dr. Manhattan, was one of the most fascinating creatures introduced in the world of Watchmen. First appearing in the DC universe in the Watchmen comics in 1986, Dr. Manhattan was essentially the son of a watchmaker whose fascination with science led him on a path where he nearly became a supernatural entity known as Dr. Manhattan. He quite literally pieced his body together atom by atom, and he has many unique physiological features. From his appearance to his ability to create duplicates, today we will explore this character and tell you all about the anatomical details of Dr. Manhattan. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. How did Dr. Manhattan, as we know him, come into existence? Dr. Manhattan's origins were extensively covered in the Watchmen comics, wherein creators Alan Moore and Dave Gibbon had dedicated an entire issue to his backstory. Born as Jonathan Osterman, Dr. Manhattan was the son of a watchmaker in America. After America dropped nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Jonathan's father quit his job and asked him to attend college and study atomic physics. Jonathan grew up around clocks and was obsessed with the concept of time, and he later went on to study at Princeton and even graduated with a PhD during his research. Jonathan met a young girl named Janie Slater, and they soon started going out together. It so happened that Janie forgot her watch in the intrinsic field chamber once, and Jonathan got blown to bits by the particle cannons when he stepped into the room to find it. Jonathan's body was obliterated into bits and pieces, but he slowly started pulling himself together molecule by molecule. After around 2 months, Jonathan rematerialized part by part, and his brain first appeared in the lab. His entire circulatory system was soon reconstructed, followed by the reconstruction of his skeletal and muscular systems. Jonathan then took Dr. Manhattan's form and became a godlike entity with powers beyond the scope of humans. He tried to reconcile with Slater, but she was no longer interested in going out with him. He later joined the US government and helped them in the Vietnam War, and he later even came across Laurie Gispesic when he joined the Minutemen. After the government declared that the Minutemen were outlaws, Laurie soon left Dr. Manhattan and he then fled to Mars.
Gaudy. Something lethal.
What's the secret behind his perfect physique? Dr. Manhattan is one of the most easily identifiable characters in Watchmen, and he has essentially created his perfect physique atom by atom. Dr. Manhattan had created a well-built body with chiseled abs and well-defined muscles, and his body also had a blue glow surrounding it. He has a hydrogen molecule symbol on his forehead, making him stand out among other characters. When he was first recruited by the Adventurer program, Dr. Manhattan was given a blue body suit and a helmet with an atom symbol etched on it. Manhattan refused to wear the helmet and instead decided to make the hydrogen symbol on his forehead on his own. His body was surrounded by a blue aura, most likely caused by the radiation from his nuclear powers. Can Dr. Manhattan alter his size? Dr. Manhattan had the ability to tweak his body size, and he could grow heights and tower over other living beings. He had once extended into a huge giant and scared the military personnel into ending the Vietnam War. Moreover, Dr. Manhattan could even enlarge certain parts of his body, and he specifically demonstrated this ability in bed. While having sexual relations with Laurie and Jenny, Manhattan would increase the size of his reproductive organs, making Night Owl feel insecure about himself after engaging with Laurie. Besides altering his size, Dr. Manhattan could also change his body density and increase his weight. This essentially made it quite difficult for his opponents to defeat him in a physical fight, as he could manipulate his bodily molecules and make himself heavier. Besides becoming denser, Dr. Manhattan also gained additional strength every time he manipulated his body to grow denser and taller.
Your mind goes to dark places and you wonder why I keep the worst from you.
How does his mind work? Dr. Manhattan is clearly quite intelligent. We have seen him use his mind to escape many tough situations. Besides his intelligence, Dr. Manhattan also possesses a variety of mental abilities that allow him to move objects with his mind without touching them. He can also use telekinesis to move from one place to another, but his powers are primarily limited to controlling things. Manhattan is not telepathic. He cannot control another person's mind or read their thoughts, while Manhattan's mind allows him to manipulate objects and make them move around all over the place. He has different tricks up his sleeve to affect other people's minds.
Oh my god. No, I'm
How does he control matter? Besides moving objects around, Dr. Manhattan's powers extend to the point where he can even manipulate his body matter into becoming lighter than air. He can control matter and bend it in any form he wishes, and he once single-handedly stopped the Vietnam War by growing in size and causing explosions everywhere. Dr. Manhattan's ability to manipulate matter was impressive, and he had once even created an entire flying palace with just some sand from Mars. His ability to control matter makes him a god-level entity, and he had once even reformed his own body after it was destroyed by nuclear energy. At the end of the Watchmen comics, he even declared that he was going to explore the universe and then use this ability to create a new form of life. Does Dr. Manhattan have any human emotions? Dr. Manhattan does not really operate like a regular human in terms of his diet as well as other bodily functions, and he does not even feel cold or heat like regular humans. After his transformation from Jonathan Osterman to Dr. Manhattan, he discovered that he did not need any earthly comforts such as food, water, or even clothes to exist. While he used to be human, Dr. Manhattan lost all humanity and did not feel any human emotions after his transformation. His sense of apathy toward humans also caused him to fall out with Lori, wherein Manhattan seemed quite confused about human needs. He had once even teleported Lori to Mars without remembering that she could not breathe in space, and Manhattan had then apologized to her after admitting that this slipped his mind. His lack of human emotions and needs was constantly shown across the comics, as he often declared that he did not care much about humanity. While he tried to come across as someone who had some care for humans, there was nothing human left within him, and he did not experience any human emotions. Even after traveling across time, Dr. Manhattan confessed that he felt the same things no matter what time he visited. He also described this as an analogy where he compared himself to a puppet who is just aware of the strings controlling him.
My work with Adrian's at a critical stage right now.
What enables him to create his duplicates? Dr. Manhattan exists on an entirely different plane than regular beings, and he can appear in multiple places simultaneously. He can teleport from place to place in order to do so, but more importantly, Dr. Manhattan can actually create duplicate versions of himself to ensure that he can focus on being in different places at once. It was often seen that Dr. Manhattan would send one of his duplicates to a particular place while he would research in his lab elsewhere, and he can experience all of these versions all at once in his mind. In one such instance, Manhattan had sent one of his duplicates to spend time with Silk Spectre while he worked on his own thing elsewhere. This was one of his most useful powers, but it was not undetectable, and it had even landed him in some trouble when Silk Spectre realized that she was only spending time with one part of Manhattan. Spectre was quite offended when she learned that the actual Dr. Manhattan was paying no attention to her elsewhere, but otherwise Manhattan's ability to create duplicates was beneficial. Can Dr. Manhattan rip juice? Dr. Manhattan existed outside the boundaries of regular space and time, and he essentially started life. He also does not require physical form and can exist on a plane beyond the physical one. While this means that Dr. Manhattan cannot reproduce by traditional means, he can duplicate himself to be in multiple places simultaneously. The real Dr. Manhattan was once doing research in lab while one of his duplicates was with Lori. While Lori knew his mind was elsewhere, Dr. Manhattan's duplicated version engaged in intimate relations with her and satisfied her. Moreover, it should be noted that Dr. Manhattan was created out of atoms and that he's essentially the fabric of life itself. It is quite unlikely that he can produce bodily fluids and bring a human child into the world, but it is quite likely that his duplicates have synthesized bodily fluids that are engineered to help in conceiving a child. However, it must be noted that creating a child with Dr. Manhattan would mean that the child would be exposed to life-threatening levels of radiation. An alternate theory suggests that Dr. Manhattan cannot reproduce by traditional means, but he does wield power to bring a child into existence by using his ability to manipulate matter and other such powers.
How can you change the future?
If only you could perceive time.
What is so unique about his perception of time? Dr. Manhattan does not exist in the same timelines as us, and he can simultaneously experience the past, present, and future. Besides just witnessing his entire life at once, Manhattan can even comment on his life experiences all at once. He even grew up studying the concept of time and space, and essentially perceives time in a non-linear fashion. While this is his most powerful trait, Dr. Manhattan's opponents have used this against him by using scientific particles to block him from seeing the future. In the Watchmen series finale, Adrian Veidt used particles known as the tachyons to distort Manhattan's visions and stop him from seeing everything that goes down in the future.
What's that? Another ultimate weapon? Yes.
How can Dr. Manhattan be defeated? Is he really immortal? Dr. Manhattan is an invulnerable force of nature who was created out of energy, which essentially makes him an eternal being. Even after being completely vaporized, Dr. Manhattan instantly regenerated himself in a prominent story arc. After he gained his powers, it became even more difficult to defeat him since he could see the past, present, and future and be warned of any attempts to destroy him. Manhattan can easily predict his death and travel in time to stop it from happening, and he once even went as far as sensing his old human self before his accident. The one time Adrian Veith didn't manage to defeat Dr. Manhattan was when he discovered tachyon particles that could mess with Manhattan's ability to travel across time. Tachyon particles could travel faster than the speed of light and confound Dr. Manhattan when he experienced events in the future, thereby preventing him from learning about Veith's grand plan. After being exposed to these tachyons, Dr. Manhattan felt that his memories were fuzzy and that he felt ecstatic, preventing him from gaining a clear picture of future events. Dr. Manhattan can also manipulate matter and make objects move around with his mind, which means that he can't be physically harmed by any weapons. He will be able to see the attack coming and then use his powers to deflect these weapons. There are also some theories about how Dr. Manhattan essentially created the entire DC universe, making it even more difficult to defeat him. Despite all this, there's a few ways in which Dr. Manhattan can theoretically be defeated. Since Manhattan's powers are science-based, there is a probability that he can be defeated by magic. He has never been able to control magic, and a powerful opponent with magical abilities can stand a chance against him. Besides magic, Dr. Manhattan's weakness also lies in his lack of telepathy skills. He cannot read someone's thoughts or control minds, and a strong telepathic opponent may stand a chance against Manhattan by altering his brain. Conclusion. To sum it up, Dr. Manhattan has a fascinating physiology, and his ability to create duplicates, create matter, and alter his physiology has helped him gain many fans. Among other things, Dr. Manhattan is quite a powerful entity who has established his godlike presence in the DC universe. If you like the content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.